In the last 6 years, meaning from 2020 to 2026, the US inflation has increased by about 29% at the time of this video. To give you an idea, in the 6 years before, meaning from 2014 to 2020, it had increased by approximately 9% in total. So yes, it is bad. And you might be wondering why exactly. Fortunately for you, in this video, we will cover 7 of the biggest reasons why inflation has been out of control since the beginning of 2020. And so, even if you watch this video after 2026, the reasons will still be valid. So without further ado, let's get started. The first reason is because of a massive amount of money injected in the economy during the 2020 pandemic. During that time, the United States alone injected more than $5 trillion in the economy through different relief programs, as well as stimulus measures, loans, benefits, and monetary policies. If that wasn't enough, interest rates also dropped to extremely low levels, making borrowing cheaper than it had been in years. That meant people had more cash, businesses could borrow more easily, and investors suddenly had access to way cheaper money than before. The problem was that yes, there was more money, but since almost everything was shut down, the production didn't follow. So there was more money for actually less supply. The perfect recipe for inflation. Now the government did that to keep the economy running and avoid a total collapse, of course. But the price of injecting more money without increasing supplies has been the beginning of this inflation wave. And that brings us to the second major issue, supply chains. During the 2020 global crisis, those systems broke down in ways people had never really seen before. Ports became congested, shipping containers ended up stuck in the wrong places, factories temporarily shut down, and labor shortages hit transportation networks. And so suddenly, products that normally moved smoothly around the world started facing delays of weeks or even months. One of the best examples was microchips. These tiny semiconductor chips are inside almost everything now. I'm talking about cars, phones, gaming systems, laptops, appliances, industrial machines, and many other stuff. So there was less electronics while the demand for them remained high, if not higher. That created shortages everywhere. Not only to buy the products, but also to repair them, creeping up inflation even more. The third reason is the impact of the Ukraine and Russia war on energy and commodities. The war has been a major disruption to food, energy, transportation, and raw materials that the world depended on, including the United States. The world is globalized now, and so, if something massively increases in cost somewhere, it eventually hit home as well. Among the many things that have been affected by the war, here's a list of some of the most impacted goods and commodities. We have oil, natural gas, fertilizers, wheat, corn, sunflower oil, and agricultural products. And so, briefly, producing food not only cost more than before, but transporting it as well. Both are excellent ways to increase overall inflation worldwide and in the United States. The fourth reason are the wage increases of 2022. When the economy reopened after the pandemic period, companies suddenly needed workers again. Restaurants reopened, hotels restarted hiring, retail expanded, transportation demand came back, and you get the idea. However, there weren't enough workers available. Millions of baby boomers who planned to retire later simply retired during the crisis instead. Some workers at the front lines decided to go back to school and switch careers. Many parents, especially women affected by childcare disruptions and rising daycare costs, stayed home longer than expected. And so, at one point, there were roughly 11 million job openings for about 6 million available workers. That was 5 million jobs that couldn't be filled nationwide. This forced companies to compete hard for employees. And so, to attract workers, companies did the oldest trick in the book. They raised wages. But to fund these wages, companies need extra money. And who do you guess had to pay for the extra income? Customers. And so they had to increase the prices of goods and services, which lead to more inflation. The fifth reason is the increase of de-globalization. For decades, companies moved production to countries where labor was cheaper and manufacturing costs were lower. If something could be made more cheaply overseas, businesses usually made it overseas. That helped keep prices lower for consumers. But after the pandemic period, supply chain breakdowns made companies realize that relying too heavily on distant factories created a lot of risk. If one country shut down, one shipping route got disrupted, or one geopolitical problem happened, entire industries could suddenly run into shortages. So governments and businesses started changing strategy. Instead of producing everything in the cheapest place possible, they started focusing more on security, reliability, and domestic manufacturing. In 2023 and 2024, for example, more than $200 billion has been invested in building U.S. manufacturing home, which is almost 3 to 4 times more than the annual average of 60 to 80 billions that the U.S. has been used to from 1990 to 2020. And that come at a cost. Since in the U.S., the labor costs are usually higher, the regulations are stricter, and the energy costs can differ as well, it leads to higher prices at the store or on your Amazon app. The sixth reason is because of tariffs. A tariff is basically a tax placed on imported goods. Governments often use tariffs to protect domestic industries, reduce dependence on foreign countries, or respond to trade disputes. For example, if there's a 10% tariff on a $100 Chinese product, that means $110 must be paid for the product to circulate in the US, and that is usually paid either by the business or customer. And in many cases, the customer is the one paying it. And since the US imports many products such as electronics parts, steel, clothing materials, machinery, or household goods, if tariffs make those imports more expensive, there's a good chance prices rise somewhere down the chain. Now, to be fair, it doesn't mean tariffs are bad. The supporters of tariffs argue they can protect local jobs, as well as strengthening domestic industries and reduce dependence on overseas manufacturing. But in any case, it makes products from overseas more expensive, which creates inflation. The seventh reason is the conflict in the Middle East, mainly involving Iran, Israel, and the United States. And more precisely, at the time of this video, the issue is the closure of the Strait of Hormuz. This matters because a huge portion of the world's oil and energy exports move through that narrow passage, about 20% based on many experts. When shipping through that area becomes disrupted, restricted, or more expensive due to conflict risks, global markets react quickly. Even uncertainty alone can move prices higher because companies, traders, and governments all start preparing for possible shortages or delays. And once oil prices rise, the effects spread almost everywhere. Not only does gasoline get more expensive, but diesel costs rise, shipping costs increase, airlines pay more for fuel, businesses transporting products spend more money moving goods from one place to another, and you understand the rest. And since transportation touches almost every product we buy, those higher costs can quietly spread through the entire economy. But it doesn't stop there. Fertilizers can also become more expensive because energy markets are deeply connected to agricultural production. Higher fertilizer costs can pressure food prices again. Plastics, chemicals, industrial production, and packaging can all become more expensive too, because many products depend directly or indirectly on petroleum. This is why conflicts far away can suddenly show up in your grocery bill, your gas station receipt, or even your online shopping cart. And so, as you can see, it is not one but many things that made and seem to keep inflation high overall since the beginning of the 2020s. And speaking of economics and finances, if you want to improve your finances, in the video description, you'll see budget planner links if you want to order one notebook for yourself on Amazon. Using these links would directly support the channel, as well as helping track your finances in these crazy inflationist times. In any case, if you enjoyed this video and want to see other economic and financial topics, give it a like and click on one of the videos showing at your screen right now. Thanks for watching. I'll see you on the next one.